Cielle Slugs, a completely different way of playing Cielle, yet no one really bothers to try it out. Is it good? Is it bad? Don't worry bro, I've got you. I literally played this game just for Slugs, and having over 400 games in all sorts of lobbies, I can tell you all there is about Slugs. I'll be splitting this guide into 4 sections. First, I'll give you a general idea about Slugs through a pros and cons list. Then I'll be talking about the upgrades that you should be taking, including the awakenings and the secondary that you should be taking. Then I'll cover the macro or the positioning that you should be playing in. And then lastly, I'll cover the micro or how to 1v1 with Cielle. If you want to see any live gameplay of Slugs, make sure to check out my Twitch, link in description. But without further ado, let's get started! So let's start with the pros of Cielle Slugs. I'm only gonna mention one pro, but it's so good that you don't really need anything else. Cielle Slugs is what I would call a jack of all trades. Now what does this mean? This means that she can effectively play in every single position and role in the game. If your sniper keeps getting diffed, you can fight the enemy sniper long range instead, and let your sniper focus on the other enemies. If your duelists keep losing their fights, you can take over their role and fight in close range. If your controller doesn't know how to deny a plant or a defuse, you can get yourself a good position with your shield and kill your slugs. If your Ming or Flavia can't enter or retake site, you can do that just fine with your shield. If your support isn't healing, you can use your shield to prevent damage in the first place. You get me? Cielle Slugs is capable of filling into any and every role, into any and every position. Her versatility is her biggest strength and her biggest weakness, because the first con and the most important one that I'm going to mention is that she is a master of none. Jack of all trades, master of none. In higher elo lobbies where people start specializing and playing their roles properly, Cielle begins to lose value. Her slugs don't do enough damage to consistently diff a DMR or sniper that can aim well. You can enter with your shield, but once you enter a close range duel, you're at a disadvantage because your weapon isn't better than a rifle in close range. The better your lobbies become, the more you lose simply because your gun is weaker, because you fail to specialize and excel in a single role. But don't you worry, that's only in higher elo. Slugs work perfectly fine anywhere below high singularity lobbies. And don't worry, it still has a future in higher elo too, but that's for another guide in another time. The second and last con that I'm going to mention, which probably applies to most of my viewers, is that you need really good aim to perform well. Without good aim, you can't consistently fight middle and long ranges, and if all you can do is fight in close range, you might as well just stick to shotgun mode. I could list more pros and cons, like the unpredictability of slugs as a pro, or how you can accidentally bait your teammates as a con, but I feel they're too niche to actually cover. Play slugs enough and people begin to expect it in like 2 rounds. And for baiting your teammates, you can just tell them that you're on slugs. Anyways, that's it for the pros and cons. Let's move on to the upgrades for slugs. So I'm gonna go over the upgrade order before explaining why. First, you're gonna take single shot mode, obviously. Then you're gonna get light armor. Then you're gonna upgrade your passive. Then you're gonna take shield recharge rate, and this for A3. Then you're gonna take ADS speed. And then you're gonna get stringified movement speed. And then you're gonna take stringified damage. And last but not least, you're gonna take mag capacity. So the upgrade order looks something like this. The idea is to rush armor and to get Awakening 3 as soon as possible, but I'll explain more about the Awakenings after I explain why we take some upgrades over others. For armor, light armor is always better simply because heavy gives you close to no regeneration. Yes, Cielle does have shield to armor conversion, but it's only 10%. Your 360 HP shield converts to only 36 armor, and that isn't enough to justify taking heavy armor. Take a look for yourself. While light armor only takes 10 seconds to fully regenerate, heavy armor takes over a minute. You realistically would not have a whole minute of rest between fights to regenerate all of your armor. For the active skill upgrade, shield recharge rate easily wins. In case you didn't know, it also reduces the cooldown duration for when your shield pops from 15 seconds to 12.5 seconds. Aside from the cooldown reduction, the two upgrades are practically the same. I'm going to nerd out a bit, so feel free to skip to this timestamp if you don't want to hear it. So first, let's talk about the conditions needed to activate either of these upgrades. For armor conversion, you need two things: armor that is not full HP, and someone to shoot your shield. Shield recharge rate, on the other hand, only has one condition: to stow away a damaged shield. Because it is easier to activate, it has much more actual usage in a match. But what about its practicality? For armor conversion, your 10% conversion rate becomes 15%. For each 20 damage bullet your shield eats, you regenerate not 2 but 3 armor. Since your shield is 360 HP, you get 54 armor back in total, which is 18 more than without the upgrade. Realistically, this helps you live 0 to 2 bullets, depending on damage and where you got shot. On the other hand, shield recharge rate increases your shield's regeneration to 43.2 per second, from the base 36 per second. For every second, you gain 7.2 more shield than without the upgrade. Within 2 to 3 seconds, this helps you live an extra bullet. Since your shield fully recovers in about 8 seconds, this helps you live 3 to 4 more bullets. This theory of crafting can get much deeper by taking into account the amount of extra armor you get from the extra bullets your shield can eat on the recharge upgrade, and by taking into account the amount of shield you recover by surviving an extra bullet with the conversion upgrade. Either way, it's easier for me to tell you my experience from over hundreds of games. There is no real difference between the two, especially on A3. Shield recharge rate ends up winning simply because it lowers cooldown, not because of its actual practicality. For the stratification upgrade, movement speed is obviously better. It helps you with your movement tech in close range, and it helps you rotate faster, which you need to do a lot of on slugs. Damage reduction, on the other hand, is kind of redundant, simply because you have a shield to hide behind. Now for the blue upgrades, ADS speed is better than rate of fire, simply because you ADS quite often on slugs, and the weapon switch helps you fight in close quarters since you switch to your secondary quite often. More on that in the micro section. Rate of fire only helps you shoot faster in close range, and since you switch to your secondary, it doesn't do much for you. For sprint speed versus stringified damage easily wins. It helps your damage actually have impact against stringified enemies. Your headshots that do normally 99 damage in close range become 119. Instead of just chipping away at their HP, you now deal a good portion of damage to their HP. Sprint speed, on the other hand, is quite useless. You never really run around on Cielle even when you have your shield up. You should be bunny hopping, attracting enemy attention, and make yourself slightly harder to hit. For magazine capacity versus reload speed, mag cap is way better. You have a passive auto reload, so make sure to abuse it as much as you can. Never actually reload on Cielle. Now let's talk about the awakenings. On slugs, your biggest weakness is close range duels. A2 helps that with extra damage, but less survivability through exploding your shield, while A3 helps that by encouraging movement and shield abuse to survive, with the goal being to reposition to a distance favorable for slugs. Moreover, you don't even want to take many close range duels unless they are heavily to your advantage, so A2 doesn't get much value. The survivability from A3 makes you more flexible, which is key to slugs gameplay. Lastly, let's mention the secondary weapon. Since slugs are pretty weak in close range because of its horrendous spread, which is literally worse than most characters on their hipfire versus Cielle's shoulder ADS, you need something to help you in close range. Preferably something that you can abuse your shield with, meaning it should have burst damage. Ember Spit and Stinger aren't burst damage, so they are disqualified. Between Athena and Ignis, Ignis is way more consistent in close range, making it the best choice for slugs. And before I move on to the next section, I won't mention what grenades are melee to carry. Grenades are completely situational, and melee is subjective. The positioning of Cielle slugs. This is going to be the shortest part of my video simply because I don't really have much to say. You can play anywhere and everywhere on Cielle slugs. The main idea is to target enemy weaknesses and fill in for your own team's weaknesses. This is completely different from match to match, but either way, you can play all starting positions in the game. There's not much else I can say. Obviously, I don't mean you can play stupid positions like this one, or that you can sit in the timeout corner. The point is, any normal position that a character can play in, Cielle can too. An added bonus if you have a right hand peek, but that's about it. For micro, the first and most important thing is experience. I can't teach you aim or peak timings. What I can teach you though are generalized rules and tricks. The first thing I want to mention is the 90-10 rule. 90% of the time you will be in ADS with your slugs. 10% of the time you will be shoulder firing or hip firing, and that is only if the enemy is closer than 10 meters. The second thing I want to mention is that for close quarters, you will generally shoot from afar with slugs first, then come close with shield and then bash them, and then shoot with Ignis. If they aren't dead, hip fire a bit with your slugs to kill them. If they have enough HP to live more than one slug bullet, just put up your shield and reload Ignis with your passive before fighting with Ignis again, or you can just run, but that's situational. The third thing I want to mention is how you shoot with ADS. You jump, take an ADS shot, double jump, glide, take another ADS shot, glide, take another ADS shot, and then glide until you land, and so on. This makes you much harder to hit. It's easier to just see me do it. So I tried to find a clip from my own gameplay, but I glide so fast, it's not even decipherable. So I decided to do it in Training Ground instead. That's the slow way of doing it. You eventually speed it up so fast that it's just not visible. That's how you shoot, basically. You do need ADS speed for it to be smooth though, so be careful. The last thing I want to mention is how important movement is for Cielle, and not just for slugs. Don't think your shield is overpowered and neglect movement. Wall sticking, gliding, juking enemies all help you live even without a shield. Movement lets your shield regenerate and tricks enemies. It's a skill that most Cielle players skip because of their shield, but it's arguably one of the most powerful skills when paired with a shield. Here's a good example. And that's it for this Cielle guide. I don't really have anything else to say about slugs. Stay tuned for the shotgun guide.